Hi, this is Lori from GLP-1 Journey in Review. Today we're doing a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today we have with us Dominic, who is also a content creator from the UK. He's going to tell us all about his journey. I want to remind everybody that I am not a healthcare provider. My guest is not a healthcare provider. We're talking about what works for us. And all of Dominic's information will be linked down below in the description. So when you're done with this, watching this video, please hop on over to his channel, like, subscribe. It really does help. If you find this useful, hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help. With all that being said, Dominic, why don't you tell us a little bit something about yourself and your journey?
Oh, crikey, I was unprepared for that. Hello. Me and my journey. Okay, so I'm 50 years old, so pretty much middle-aged. I've been overweight for many, many years, and I can pinpoint almost, well, to the year almost, when my downward spiral of health in terms of body weight started, which was some time ago now. It's back in 2001. It was a slow, gradual thing that happened, the weight gain and things like that. But then certain events happened in my life that meant that I then started to begin to rapidly put weight on. And then finally, September last year, I decided I really needed to tackle it and do something about it. I was in the right frame of mind and position to want to tackle it and improve my health. So, yes, here I am today, nearly a year later. Well, pretty much a year later, actually. I started focusing on my health and doing something about it after taking the advice last year in February this year. And 6 months later, I'd lost 100 pounds. I've lost a bit more than that now, but
Yeah.
yeah, 100 pounds in about 6.5 months. So I'm obviously absolutely over the moon with that. And my whole life has changed really because of that so far. And hopefully we'll just keep getting better.
So what made you decide to try a GLP-1 medication?
Well, there's been a lot about it in the press over the last sort of
Hmm.
12 to 18 months. It really came to the fore. I don't know why. I know it's been in existence for quite some time, longer than that, but obviously people catch wind of these things and reporters suddenly find an interesting story and then it comes to the forefront of news articles and things like that. But in the lead up to September last year, I was beginning to suffer from sleep apnea. I didn't know it was sleep apnea at the time, but I was having the symptoms of sleep apnea. And also leading up to that, I had some really sore knees and I'd had an injury to one of my knees that just wouldn't get better. Went to
Hmm.
doctors, I went to a hospital about it and couldn't really improve it um, very much. And I was doing jobs at the time where I was on my feet for most hours of the day. So it was very painful. And I got really fed up with literally hobbling around on my feet. And that combined with the sleep apnea, I was having really, really terrible time with my sleep. So that affected my health as well. That's when I decided to go to the doctor and say, right, these are my issues. I want to get them sorted out. I turned 50 in December. I think the doctor thought I meant I wanted to sort out everything and have it fixed, including my body weight by last December. You should have seen the look on her face, which is not what I meant. I just meant I wanted a plan. I wanted to know what was going on with my body, know what I could do about it, and understand that. And she looked at me. She reviewed my body weight and things like that. I'm morbid. I was morbidly obese. I weighed 353 pounds. And she turned to me. I've never met this doctor before. And she looked at me and she said, so, bariatric surgery. And I was like, a bit gobsmacked. I think my jaw probably hit the floor. I was like, what about bariatric surgery? She said, well, we're assuming that at the age of 50, you've tried dieting and you've tried this and that, and it hasn't worked for you for whatever
Hmm.
reason. So we would recommend bariatric surgery to you. And I was like, my jaw hit the floor. This is the first time in my life that I've chosen to talk about my weight with a health professional. So you can imagine it's a bit like Roadrunner or something. I've gone from 0 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour in one conversation in that small room with my doctor. And I knew instantly I wasn't going to have bariatric surgery. That's probably what gave the fire in my belly to do something else about it. There's no way. Bariatric surgery over here, I think although a lot of people have it, it's still major surgery, even if it's done through
Mhm.
keyhole surgery now. And I happen to have people around me in my circle of social life and work life who I knew who had bariatric surgery, and I could see that they were suffering. They were finding it difficult still. And that's because there's other underlying problems quite often with people like me when you put a lot of weight on. It could be mental health issues,
Mhm.
physiological issues, all sorts of other things. So I've always known I've enjoyed food, even when I wasn't overeating. I've always enjoyed good quality food. Um, and I was surrounding myself by that kind of thing for many years too. I used to work in the wine industry. I also worked for a very successful beer company over here in the UK. So, and we were always pairing wine or beer with food. So I was always going in and walking in and out the best restaurants in London, the best hotels. And I'm talking Michelin star,
Mhm.
Gordon Ramsays of the world, people like that. They were the kind of people I was dealing with on a daily basis. So I was always surrounded by food and good quality food and alcohol. Um, so I knew that bariatric surgery just wasn't going to work for me. I enjoyed food too much. I needed to find a different solution. So putting two and two together and having seen what was in the press about the likes of Mounjaro and Ozempic and things like that, I asked my doctor about that, and it was a big no-no straight away for lots of different reasons. Here in the UK, it's very hard to get on the NHS. So I investigated some further and I made some changes to my finances and the way I spent my money each month and decided I'd go and buy it for myself privately, which I started doing in February. And hence here I am today and talking to you.
So I can't, not mention the fact that you're in
Mhm.
the UK and you just had these
Yep.
major price increases.
Yes.
So how is everybody really handling it?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and I'm in the fortunate position that I can still afford to buy Mounjaro just. I have no spare money at the end of the month.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it went up significantly. So for me and the provider that I've chosen to use, it was originally costing me on the dosage that I'm on, which is 12.5 milligrams, about £200 a month. It's now costing about £320 a month. So it's gone up, more than 30% essentially.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it's quite frightening, really. And I really feel for the people that can't afford it now, if that's really knocked them out the ballpark, really, for a lot of people. And a few years ago, I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it either. But I've got grown up children now who still live at home, unfortunately. But they pay towards, they pay us some rent and things, which is what alleviated the finances enough for me to be able to buy Mounjaro privately. But yeah, it's a complete disaster. There's lots of politics involved, and there's lots of other things about fairness and things like that, and that's absolutely fine. But that doesn't change, the need
Right.
for the drug or the want for the drug. So it's probably irrelevant to talk about that. But yeah, that I can imagine that's had a very dramatic effect on a lot of people, and I understand from following people like you, who you talk to, others, and other
Mhm.
YouTube creators. A lot of people have changed to Wegovy, I think, as Ozempic.
Mhm.
Um, but I think, this is my life. I feel like I've taken some major steps and made some major milestones already to, I don't want to say save my life because that's almost being overly dramatic, but I might have done for all I know. The
Mhm.
reason I started this tackling of the body weight was to try and avoid having a heart attack, avoid having a stroke, avoid getting
Right.
diabetes. Generally, I was in good health in terms of I have no serious illnesses. My knee was probably the worst thing, and the sleep apnea as well, which is definitely weight related. I don't know how much, but there's no doubt it was weight related. You get to a certain body weight, and it was like the tipping scales. That's when the sleep apnea really took hold. And incidentally, I should say that I have got a CPAP machine now, and
Mhm.
apologies if I'm digressing, but I can tell you, hand on my heart, within about 7 days, I noticed the improvement in my health and my sleep was huge just from using the CPAP machine.
You haven't
So
named it Colin, have you?
I beg your pardon. Oh no, I'm aware of Colin and Michael Caine. Hello, Joe, if you watch. Yes, yeah, very good. I haven't given him a name, but perhaps I ought to. I just said a him as well. It might be a she. You never know. Um, But yeah, so if anyone happens to be watching this and they think they've got sleep apnea and they haven't done anything about it, I can't tell you. That was life changing in itself. And I happen to do a job that's shift based, around 24 hours of the clock. So I could be working daytime, late nights, and through the night. And so that plays havoc with your circadian rhythm and your sleep patterns in general and your health
Mhm.
overall. So that doesn't help with body weight. And having sleep apnea sort of, it was like a quadruple compounding effect, if you like. So as soon as I started using that machine, within a week, I noticed a difference. I was able to really be alert and bright at work, which is what I needed to be, rather than yawning and almost nodding off at my desk, and I was almost doing that at work at one point, and
Mm.
my colleagues were having to shout at me. It was very embarrassing, um, but very worrying too, because I knew that wasn't me. It's just not like me. I wasn't going to bed at a silly o'clock. I just wasn't having quality sleep when I was doing it, when I was having my sleep. Have I finished answering a question there? I get all
Yes,
excited and I go off on a tangent, so apologies.
that's quite all right. How is the knee? Is it any better?
Oh, yeah. Well, I ought to tell you about that. Yeah. So my knees, I wouldn't want to say they're perfect, but I have zero pain in my knees, absolutely none. And that was a combination of two things. That was the beginning of losing body weight, but also really importantly, which I talk about on my channel quite a lot. And it's almost embarrassing to say it, really, to some degree, but it's important people have a full understanding of where we're coming from. And that is, I started deliberately walking. I was walking for my health, not walking for enjoyment or walking to commute to anywhere. I thought, I need to get out of my office chair. I'm sat here at work for 8 hours a day, and I might stand up to go to the loo, stand up to go and get a drink or my lunch. We do have standing desks at work as well, so I would stand up every now and then, but you're
Mhm.
always on the same spot. But luckily, where I work, it's in what we would call over here an area of outstanding natural beauty. So it's like a protected area because it's got lots of wildlife and possibly some wild wildlife as well, rare wildlife, I should say. So it's very picturesque where I work. So I would make sure that I go out for a walk for 20 minutes every day at work. And it's on quite an incline as well, where I would start my little walk off. And just doing that for a few weeks, and it was painful. It was very, very painful on my knees when I started. You're sweating and you're unfit and unhealthy anyway, plus the pain in the knees. But I stuck at it. And again, within a few weeks, you suddenly realize the funny thing about the human body, I find, is you're always very aware when you've got a pain and a problem. That's very conscious at the front of your mind. But when something improves, it's not so at the forefront. It's like one day you take a step back and you realize, I've just realized I've just walked all this week and I haven't had a single bit of pain on my knees. And that's what it was like. It was like a hallelujah moment. I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I'm going to do some more of this. And so that obviously helped me with my body weight. It did a lot of help with my body weight,
Mhm.
still does. Um, Absolutely bloody marvelous for my knees and my body in general, and my back. My fresh air and my mental health from doing that as well. And then something else that I noticed as well is sleep apnea aside, actually falling asleep, getting to sleep in the first place, improved dramatically on the days I went for
That's
a
great.
walk. And it was just a 20-minute walk, literally 20 minutes in a day. I did no other exercise. Um, and on the days I didn't go for the walks, I struggled to fall asleep. And again, talking about what's conscious and at the front of your mind, I didn't put two
Mhm.
and two together straight away. It was probably after a month, maybe 2 months, I suddenly realized, oh, do you know what? Thinking about it in retrospect, the days I'm not walking, I struggle to fall asleep. And the days I do my walk, I have no issues whatsoever. In fact, I probably
Mm.
have a better night's sleep as well. So that's something else worth bearing in mind for people who have perhaps led a sedentary lifestyle or still are, like I was for sure. But walking's huge, and it sounds so
Yes.
obvious as well, And I wasn't always morbidly obese. When I was a younger man, I would say I was very fit. I was in the top percentage of people my age for fitness. I used to do karate and all sorts of martial arts. I
Mhm.
used to go to the gym regularly. I was fairly muscly. I mean, I don't put a lot of weight behind the fact it was muscle, trying to look like Schwarzenegger or whatever, but lots of young men would do. Um, but I was just very fit, and I could eat what I liked and have no concerns about it. But exercise now means something entirely different to me, and walking, and the more I investigate the effects of what walking has for you and listen to experts online and things like that, you realize actually there's something we take for granted for those of us who are able to walk. It's actually so simplistic, but it's so powerful. It's nuts.
Absolutely. Do you think the fact that the GLP-1 medications help with inflammation also help with your knees?
um, Yes, I think I should say it now, and if anyone has already seen some of my videos or they choose to look at them after this, I will bore you to tears with this, but I think it's really important to remember this. Mounjaro, for me at least, and for many people, I appreciate, is not a magic wand. You don't suddenly
Mm,
start injecting yourself with this and then everything gets better on its own. You have to make an effort. You have to make an effort. And so, going back to your question, um, I don't know that Mounjaro itself reduced the inflammation. What Mounjaro did was support me while I made a decision, a very conscious decision to cut out all junk food, absolutely all junk food. I stopped like cold turkey, if you like, on day one that I took the injection. And I made a conscious decision to eat not just healthy food, but good quality healthy food as well. So immediately as I was losing the weight, and immediately because of the types of food that I was consuming, I now know subsequently from doing lots of research about it, is the types of food I was eating as well also contribute to reducing inflammation. So it's a holistic approach. It's not just the
mhm.
Mounjaro, the GLP-1 that helped reduce the inflammation. There's a combination of everything together. Um, And again, you know, I've talked and ranted a little bit about it on my own channel, where I see lots of people, like physically in person in my life, and an awful lot of people online as well, who take things GLPs like Mounjaro, but don't really change their diet or their approach to their diet. It goes back as well to hearing about all the Hollywood stars who probably didn't need it but had access to it and needed to lose a few pounds here and there, and they would start taking it, and voila, it worked. And there's too many people, I think, who are still doing that now. I don't know how it is for your healthcare over there, but over here there isn't the support behind why you need to take Mounjaro and similar weight loss drugs isn't there yet, which is why famously over here millions of people probably need and want to take Mounjaro, but the NHS, our National Health Service, are very, very slow at rolling it out because they know you need that support behind it and it's just not there. So unless you pull your finger out and do the research yourself like I
Right.
have, people just think, and I'm not criticizing people. We all have our own different backgrounds and ways of life and view things differently. Have said and read, buy this drug, inject this drug, and you'll lose weight, and you do. But there's healthy ways of losing weight, and then there's terrible ways of losing weight. And quite often for me personally, and again, and I'm very specific, like you are about we're not health professionals. This is my opinion. Is a lot of the people that suffer from the side effects as well of take these drugs are also the same people who haven't declared that they're eating healthily. Now, they might have made some
Mhm.
changes and moderated the volume of food they're eating. Instead of eating a pack of donuts, they might be eating just one donut, but they're still eating the donut. And that is having an impact on us, and I understand and know that now, whereas I wouldn't have thought about it before. So it's not always about blissful ignorance either. Um, and something else I did this year is I signed up and I'm now taking a qualification in health and nutrition. So it's a proper
Mhm.
qualified examination at the end. Well, it's throughout the course, if you like. So it's like being a miniature nutritionist at the end of it, if you like. I don't want to demean that role and
Right.
responsibility at all. It's a long way off being a fully qualified nutritionist, but it goes in depth into what is the effect of these food items, and especially when you combine them with other foods, and what it's doing to your body. So I find it really interesting, and perhaps that's helped me quite a lot because I have an interest in doing it. It's helped me keep and stick to the healthy diet and the better approach to lifestyle and things like that. um, but yeah, so Yeah, it's definitely for me. It's not a magic wand. It's a crutch. I lean on Mounjaro. It helps me as I'm making these adjustments. I think I said at the beginning of this, it was 2001. I can pinpoint the year when I started overeating and why I was starting to overeat. We might talk about that. I don't know. You might not be interested in that, but um,
Absolutely, go ahead.
that's when I can pinpoint that happening, and it's a gradual thing, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I think people need to be open-minded and try and be very reflective of their lives to work out why they got to where they did. I think also on the, you would never have found me before this year even remotely considering doing anything on YouTube, putting myself in public like this. Um, I used to be the life and soul of parties. I would always enjoy being the center of attention. I used to run pubs and bars for a living, right the way back in
Mhm.
2001, where my problem started, if you like. So I was always happy to be either the center of attention or part of a big part of the party. And it was my job to a certain degree as well. Um, but that all changed over the years as I got older and you have kids and things like that and careers and what have you. But I found the improvement to my health so dramatic that I felt I needed to share it. Even if only 10 people were to watch the video,
Mhm.
that's 10 people who might be better off from just one little nugget of information that I give out, you know? Yeah, I can go on for hours, but if you just pull out one little nugget of what I've been piping on about, then that's a good thing. And I enjoy helping people too. When I worked in the beer industry, I was a sales manager. So I had lots of young, enthusiastic people just starting out in their careers in my team, and I would support them to become better salespeople and get and further their careers. And it's a bit like I imagine being a high school teacher or any kind of teacher really is you get that satisfaction at the end of the year when you review how your
Mhm.
students have got on. The reward in the job is seeing them better themselves and get satisfaction from what they've done and the pride in that. And I guess that's my kind of personality a bit, which is why I thought, right, okay, I'm going to do YouTube about it. And if 10 people watch it, I'm very happy. I think it didn't hurt the fact that the very first video I ever made had 14,000 views, and I was like, my jaw hit
Mhm.
the floor. It's nothing like that now, unfortunately. But yeah, it still gives you the impetus to want to do more and share more. Um, And I think you've seen one or maybe more of my videos. I know you watched one. I remember you
Mhm.
commenting on it, but I try to keep it light-hearted as well. There's a lot of us out there who like to talk about Mounjaro, GLP-1s, and weight loss, and I respect everyone that does it. We all have our own different angle on it. Um, but the way of the world and the way YouTube works, an awful lot of people will just sit there in front of the camera, as I do, as we're doing now, and talk away. But I try to add snippets of funny movies and things like that that relates to what I'm saying because I just try to keep it light-hearted. I'm a big believer now that you need to make the most of life, and the more we can laugh about things and be self-deprecation, if you like, as well, the better. You only live once,
Absolutely.
so why be miserable?
So when you first started your, Mounjaro, did you have
Mm.
any side effects or, were you scared or, what were your thoughts?
So, I think like many people are, if you're not used to having injections, which I wasn't really, then yeah, sticking that needle in your body for the very first time can be a little bit scary. But then I remembered actually that I would have a flu jab every year at work, um,
Mhm.
and a nurse would come along. And the last few years, I guess the technology and with needles as well nowadays and the way they're machined, I can remember that actually the last two or three times that the nurse jabbed me in my arm with my flu jab, I didn't even know she'd done it. I didn't feel it. I had no idea that the needle had physically been in my arm. There was nothing there to feel. And I remember that and I thought, yeah, do you know what? Stuff it. This is about me trying to save my life, improve my life, extend my life. I've got to try this. So you get over that nervousness, and anyone who hasn't done it yet but are considering doing it, that's going to be the least of your worries, worrying about putting the needle in you. Believe
Mhm.
me. And if you are frightened of needles, then maybe go to your doctor or go to a relative and a friend who might help do it with you. Would be my suggestion. But in terms of side effects, I think I guess I'm very lucky that for the first few weeks, I only had one side effect, which is unpleasant, but not, didn't affect my health and my well-being. And that's what a lot of people report is what you would call sulfur burps.
Mhm.
And that's because, you're having a dramatic effect on your digestion system and your stomach acids and things like that immediately. Well, within 24 hours taking this drug, it slows your digestion down. So things are hanging around in your stomach longer than they would have done before and longer in your digestive system. And therefore, it creates more gases and then you get sulfur burps. So, yeah, not very nice, but, carry some nice menthol chewing gum around with you and things like that. And although that's probably not all that advisory because that creates more gas itself. But yeah, so that's all I really suffered from for the first few months. But again, having listened to lots of other people and watched hundreds of hours of other people on YouTube talking about their GLP usage and things, again, from day one, to remind everybody, I cut out all the crap. I stopped eating any unhealthy foods. I stopped, well, I wasn't drinking anyway, really. I haven't drunk for a long time for no particular reason. I never had a problem with alcohol. But as I mentioned earlier, I used to work in two
Mhm.
industries that involved alcohol. They were based solely around wine and beer, and I used to run pubs and bars for a living before that. So I've always been surrounded by alcohol. I never became an alcoholic, thank goodness. Um, but I fell out of feeling the need to have a drink, I guess, when I was at home. So I didn't really have the issue of worrying about alcohol, but my food was, just atrocious what I was eating. So, again, going back to your question before I go off on too many tangents, yeah, the side effects were very minor to start off with. Um, Partly, I believe, I'm not a doctor, but partly because I wasn't still taking on board very fatty foods, and highly calorific foods that had very little nutrients in them. And so that would definitely, well, in fact, you can tell, you only need a bit of common sense to know that that would help lessen the minimize the side effects. I mean, think about it. If I'm taking a drug that's going to slow down my digestion, keep food in my stomach longer. If I'm keeping food in my stomach longer that's not healthy for me, that's highly imagine having a donut. I call them jam donuts. I think they're jelly donuts over there.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, things like that. They're really high fat, lots of calories, really quite greasy, full of sugar, and having that sitting in your digestive system longer, then of course you're probably going to experience more side effects. Might not be the whole story, but I definitely feel that that had a big effect on it. But as I increased my dosage levels of it, I did get the what's the best word I can think to use for it? The dreaded C word, a bit of constipation. And I'd never had
Mhm.
that before in my entire life. So that was quite shocking and very uncomfortable. Um, and, oh, yeah, I didn't appreciate that at all. And that had an effect on me as well because I went out and bought a very nice, very expensive, flashy exercise bike for home. I used to have gym memberships, and like so many people like me, you have all good intentions. You buy your gym membership and then never use it or find reasons not to go. And my biggest one, which partly has some truth behind it, is because I am a shift worker and I work very late hours or very late nighttime hours and things. It made it quite a lot more awkward to go to the gym, and the traveling time on top of that was always an easy excuse not to go to the gym. So that's why I made a decision to have some equipment at home. But as you can imagine, if you're suffering from constipation and you want to use an exercise bike, which involves you sitting on your butt for the whole time, then there wasn't a good combination. So that really naffed me, really made me feel peed off because I couldn't use my bike as much
Mhm.
as I wanted to. Um, but again, that subsided, like they all have. They've all subsided. And I also had a bit of backache as well. And again, I didn't put two and two together initially. Because obviously I was doing a lot of walking as well. So I thought maybe it's the walking, things like that. But I realized one day that actually, I had this, I've still got a belly, I'm not kidding myself, but it's considerably smaller than I started out as. Right? When you've got this really massive distended belly hanging over the front of you, your back is always trying to
Mhm.
adjust and counter that weight. Otherwise, you're going to be stooped over, obviously. So my back muscles have designed themselves over the last few years to take into account all this weight hanging off the front of me. And then as that weight was coming off quite fast, well, very fast, really, rapidly, then my back muscles that have been like this for years are having to find their way and readjust to, oh, actually we don't need to pull back against this weight. That weight's not there now. And so backache was something it hadn't occurred to me that I would get as well. And then obviously as that stabilized, as the weight came off and then it became more gradual, my back muscles had the time to then adjust, and my core muscles, I suppose. So that was another side effect that I wasn't expecting at all. That was a complete surprise. But then again, Google's a wonderful thing. The internet's like, so I put in weight loss or Mounjaro weight loss, backache, blah blah blah, and then suddenly you find, oh yeah, these are some common side effects. And then one other one, um, which is kind of embarrassing, but I always made a promise I'd always talk about the good and the bad and the ugly, because otherwise people don't have the whole picture of
Hmm.
what to expect. And isn't that why we do this? It's the part of the enjoyment of
Absolutely.
doing these YouTubes is to share information. And people who haven't started doing these things yet but want to or are planning to, then if they're armed with more data, more knowledge, then so much the better. But I was having a sore bum all the time as well. Sore bottom, backside. What do you call it over there? An arse, an ass,
Mhm.
what have you. Sorry if you need to edit that out.
No, no,
But
no.
it's like I was
We're
sitting there like, oh,
adults.
this this is uncomfortable, and having a bruised coccyx. This is really uncomfortable. What's going on? And then you again, because you're not used to these things, and having been morbidly obese for so long, I suddenly realised that we've got to talk about these things. It's not just fat around the belly you lose fat everywhere. So I was losing fat
Mhm.
on my bum, my butt cheeks. So my bum is now having to like readjust to, although it's a lot lighter, there's still weight. You still weigh something.
Right.
So the trunk of my body is sitting down on my butt cheeks, but they're not used to it having no less padding there. So there's another one to think about as well. So the ones I wasn't expecting: a sore back and a sore bottom, and basically a bruised coccyx because the padding's gone, and sitting down like that, plus obviously using an exercise bike as well, probably didn't help. But so those are things to watch out for if you're considering taking these weight loss drugs, and you'll lose weight quite quickly on them compared to not using them. Then yeah, don't be surprised if some of these things happen to you.
So now let's talk a little bit about accessibility. Here in the United
Hmm.
States, uh, it's very accessible. Whether your insurance will pay for it or not, that's a total different story. They don't want to put up the money up front.
Yeah.
But then we have like Lilly Direct, where you can get right from Eli Lilly
Hmm.
in U.S. dollars. I think it's between like 350 and $600 depending on the dosage
Yep.
for
Right.
a month. There's also compounding, which is a lot cheaper.
Hmm.
And here you like any spa that you go to, you'll see a sign, we give GLP-1 injections here,
Wow.
they're selling it. So it's very accessible. How
Right.
accessible is it in the UK? I know that uh, your insurance, your healthcare isn't
Yeah.
really
No, it's
accepting
not geared
it
up for
right
that at
now.
all. Yeah, I mean, we one thing that's been clear for decades is the way the UK works with health service and health insurance is very, very different to you guys in the US, and always has been, and probably always will be. Um, and that's no bad thing in my eyes for what we get and what the service we get, and
Mhm,
everyone's got an opinion on that, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, no, it's not very accessible at all at the moment. There's absolutely you don't need to be. Um, a professor or have the world's highest IQ to see that in the future it will be very accessible because of the dramatic positive effects it will have on literally millions of people. I think I didn't make a note of it. I wish I had now, but I don't think I'd be far off if I said approximately 50% of the adult population in this country is over class as overweight.
mhm.
I don't know about obese because there's obviously different stages of being obese and morbidly obese and all this business, but who could do with losing a few pounds. And people like me in my position, who would most definitely fall back on the NHS in future years with what I mentioned earlier, having a stroke, having a heart attack, developing diabetes if you're not already diabetic, all sorts. I think they can attribute something ridiculous like 400 different diseases to being obese.
Mhm.
And um, without worrying about the argument about, is it fair or not that I'm not getting it on the NHS, I'm having to pay for it myself. The fact is that by doing this, I'm doing it for me, number one, but the side effect is I am probably saving in the long run the NHS thousands of pounds, which we're all taxpayers pay for the
Mhm.
NHS in the UK, our healthcare, our general healthcare, um, means that I will be less of a burden on them in the future, which is brilliant for me, but also brilliant for the NHS.
Right.
I mean, if you remember right at the start, I said when I went to the story started with me going to the doctor, and she was saying, well, we're probably going to recommend bariatric surgery to you. No matter how routine that surgery is in the NHS in this country, I can tell you it costs the NHS around about a ballpark figure, depending on where you are in the country, anywhere between sort of £4,000 and £6,000 for that one operation on me as an individual. Well, I haven't had the bariatric surgery, and I don't need bariatric surgery now. I've lost enough weight to not qualify for it. So if I don't put that weight back on ever again, then there you go. I've just saved the NHS 5 or 6 grand, just like that. Um, so when we're talking about accessibility, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind. One day, I mean, it'll be like this might be a bit of a sore point in the States at the moment, talking about paracetamol or brand name Tylenol, but you know, that's you can buy that on the shelf in a shop. And one day, I
Mhm.
don't know how many years that will be, but one day you'll probably be able to do that with the likes of Mounjaro or Ozempic and other things like that. It's quite clear and quite apparent for people like you and me who have a vested interest in this and do research and do
Mhm.
YouTube presentations about it, that there will be lots of other drug companies that get involved with this. There'll be lots more competition, which will bring the price down, which is can only be a good thing for everybody. And there'll be different types of those drugs. We already know it's already out there in the press that they're trying a pill format of things like
Right.
Mounjaro. Eli Lilly aren't sitting on their laurels waiting for another company like Pfizer to come along or another big pharmaceutical company to come along with the next big thing that works even more dramatically than Mounjaro or Ozempic does. They'll be developing their own products. They want to capture the market, just like any other business does with whatever they specialize in.
Mhm.
So it can only get better in the future in terms of accessibility, in terms of price, and probably as well in terms of can't think of the right word, the potency of it as well. The efficacy
Right.
of the drugs will only get better too. So I think the future is very bright, as it is in the States as well, I'm sure, and the price will only
Mhm.
come down. It can only come down, really. It wouldn't make sense
Mhm.
for it to keep increasing. Along the way in that journey, there might be more of a rocky road. You might have another president who's not very happy that other countries are paying a lot less than you are, and will make another decision that puts the price up. But it will all balance itself out one way or another. Um, and I think that came out quite quickly as well. A good indication of that over here was once the announcement came out, and it was all very fast, to be fair, from announcing it to actually happening, is that decision that, again, I don't want to make it about politics, but it came back from anyway. It sounded like it came back from the president of the United States discovered talking to one of his pals over here in London, who was talking about, he said, oh, you're looking really fit and healthy. And he goes, yes, this great drug I'm taking called Mounjaro. Oh, how much is that? And then he found out that what we were paying for it was a lot less than you guys were paying for it. Naturally, it's in your president's interest to look out for your interests. Wasn't happy that you were paying so much more, or whether your insurance companies were, and so therefore he wanted a bit of redress for that. And so the company, to balance reducing the price over there, obviously needed to put ours up, and plenty of other countries too. So that has probably hurt the market quite a bit over here, or potentially would. But you've already seen that they're already doing deals with Eli Lilly and things like that to
Mhm.
keep the price down. Because what people need to remember is they are justifiably concerned, or were obviously affected when the price went up so significantly overnight within a month or so of this announcement. But you've got to try not to panic and just remember that it's not in Eli Lilly's interests or any of the other GLP-1 makers to have the price hike so high that it prices people out the market. Otherwise, you don't have a business. You
Right.
don't. Millions of us use a car, buy a car to drive around. But if the car becomes unaffordable and less people can buy them, then the car manufacturers will make less money. So they have to make a choice. They either put the price up, which means they'll sell even less, and they'll have to, it'll only be to the very rich and famous people who can afford to buy the product, or they make it more affordable so you have a wider spread of the market and therefore you sell more volume overall. And that's what you need to try and remember with these kind of things. Okay, yeah, definitely painful now while the price rockets
Mhm.
up, but I feel confident that in the long run the price will come down because otherwise they just won't sell the drug if it keeps going up the wrong way.
Well, Eli Lilly did the same thing here. I think it was like
Mhm.
2022, 2023. They
Right,
were giving everybody coupons where if you had any type of insurance, you got it for $25 a month. And they did that for
right.
about a year and a half,
Mhm.
basically got all these people hooked on the
Yep.
medication and
Yep.
yanked it away.
Yeah.
So, they're kind of known for doing this type of thing.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's a bit like I don't know if this is a good example or not. So Apple, when they introduced the iPhone, and it was a product. It was like the first proper the smartest of smartphones. And you create and generate lots of interest around it and lots of eagerness to want the best, the biggest, and the best, smartest smartphone. Um, but they positioned themselves in the premium end of the market, and they've kept themselves there, obviously. So if you couldn't afford an iPhone, your next choice of phone was pretty duff. But like all market forces and other companies getting involved in the commerciality of these things, is other people like Samsung came along and they started developing smartphones of a similar nature. And then one day you find that right today you can go out and spend more money on other phone brands than Apple. Apple aren't necessarily the most expensive phone manufacturer anymore. And exactly the same thing applies to anything in the commercial world. And drugs, like it or not, are a commercial enterprise. I think I think it probably comes more of a shock to us over here in the UK as well, thinking about it out loud now, because of the way our health service worked. All our drugs through the NHS have always been discounted. We've never paid full
Mhm.
price for our medicines if we're getting it through the NHS. We're getting it at a standard price. So if you had a prescription for a medicine, it didn't really matter whether the medicine actually cost £500 in real money or £50. You still paid the same price, the price of a prescription for that medicine overall. So, when you hear these stories about the price rocketing and things, it's really affecting people like me who are buying it privately, not those on the NHS. For the few people
Mhm.
that are getting it on the NHS, they're not paying 300 and something pounds a month for it. Um, so that's also worth bearing in mind as well. But I think I know I'm doing a lot of talking and you're not doing many questions because I'm
It's
just
fine.
like this. It's the eagerness to, share the knowledge and the experience, I suppose. But I still would say I have absolutely, if tomorrow the NHS said, right, we've got enough supply that everybody that needs it can have it on the NHS. So it would start costing me a few quid again, a few pounds rather than hundreds of pounds. I wouldn't have regretted the fact that I started back in February this year.
Mhm.
And I so hope that nobody else does the day that that happens when it becomes more commonly available, because I could have had a heart attack in March this year. You don't know, do you?
Right.
You don't know what you don't know. But what I did know was, and what is clear, because we got enough science out there to know that if you're morbidly obese like I was or am, that leads to illnesses. So if I can reduce the impact of my morbid obesity, then that can only be a good thing. There is no downside to that. The fact that I can afford it, I feel very lucky and pleased. Um, but I don't go on nice, expensive holidays and things like that. I don't go sunning myself off halfway around the world. I'm spending my money on a drug that's going to save my life or potentially already has, or improve my life. I don't want to sound overly dramatic for the sake of it. But in the long run, there's no doubt, really, is there? I mean, come on, if we're all honest with ourselves, when I weighed
Mhm.
353 pounds and it was only going one way, and that was that way with my body weight, then sooner or later, it wasn't just going to be my knees that were giving way. It could have been my heart, my liver, all sorts of things, all sorts of things. So no regrets. If it goes up to £500 a month, I can't afford it and I will have to stop. But this is key for me. This is a point actually that I thought I might want to get across while you're interviewing me, so I'll do it now. And that is people. I really, really can't emphasize enough. I sound like a broken record, I know, but it's really, really important to remember that if you start taking things like Mounjaro or other weight loss drugs, it is so important that right from the word go, you make the effort to change, if you need to, your dietary habits and your nutritional intake. And for one big reason, I've got lots of them, but one big reason is for this one, and that is, if the price went up so high that I couldn't afford Mounjaro anymore tomorrow, I don't want to fall back into my old ways. But I've already got new habits now. I've been going for just over 7 months doing this. And for 7 solid months, as I said before, I'm not eating any junk food at all. So that food noise has been taken away. And you often hear the terminology food noise when it comes to
Mhm.
GLP-1s and things. And that's definitely a thing, definitely.
Absolutely.
Um, so it's removed that. And the food noise won't come back if Manjaro disappears for me tomorrow, because I've changed my habits, my daily habits. I go in a supermarket now. I barely need to write a list out of what I need, because I automatically know where to walk in the aisles of every supermarket I go in to get all my salad produce, to get my fresh fruit to go in my protein yogurt, to get the meat that I know is going to deliver the nutrients and the protein I need. I don't walk down the aisle that sells the biscuit and the candy anymore because I don't need to. And yes, a lot of that is to do with, early on anyway, is the drugs taking away the food noise and removing
Mhm.
that wants and needs for the sugary taste. Um, but if you stopped giving me Mounjaro tomorrow, I'm going to be craving the salads, the nice crunchy radishes and cucumber I put on my salads. I'm going to be craving the tuna steak, the chicken. Apologies if you're vegetarian.
Mm.
The fresh fish that I make myself, because I look forward to those things now. And that's another funny thing, really, is that you can really change your attitude towards food while you're on these drugs. So it's another bonus, if you like. And it's not that I ever didn't enjoy healthy foods like eating a salad with a variety of colors and things on, and healthy fish, not battered fish and things like that, but just fresh fish, and the olive oils and the Mediterranean style diet and all these other things. I always enjoyed that. I said earlier, I worked in the wine industry for many years, and that was always pairing wine with good quality foods. There's no point in having a good quality wine if you're going to eat crappy food. Um, so I always enjoyed it, but what we haven't spoken about yet is the reasons why I became morbidly obese. And a lot of that was due to stress, stress and anxiety, plus poor work hours and longer work hours that I was doing. And so my crutch became food. I sought solace, if you like, or happiness in eating sweet foods and unhealthy foods. And then that you get into that evil circle then of, it's not just you're craving something because you think it's a reward because it's sweet, whether it's a sweet dessert or your favorite Ben and Jerry's ice cream or whatever like that. It then became that because you were more tired, because you were eating less healthily, that doesn't help with your energy levels. So you become more tired, never mind about the stress and everything else that might have been going on in the background. You then go for the convenient foods that you stick in the microwave that have got hundreds of preservatives in and things like that, and plenty of ingredients that just have no right to be in your body. um, so it's like a double whammy. You're then eating not very healthy foods, but that's making you feel worse. So then you eat more unhealthy foods and you go for the convenient, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And you get on that spiral. So yeah, that's the wonder part, the miracle part, if you like, that I have of the attitude towards things like Mounjaros. It's given me that time to readjust, reevaluate, and turn my life around completely in terms of nutrition is or has been. And therefore, I'm now on a strong footing that if for whatever reason I lost access to Mounjaro tomorrow, I'm still happy and confident I know what I need to eat. I look forward to eating those foods. And something else we might talk about, I don't know how much time you got, to be honest, but um, I'm sure other people have talked about it. I know they have as well. Is about when the drug starts to wear off at certain levels, certain
Mhm.
dosages. And I'm now, there are more occasions now where I begin to think, I'm noticing that I'm beginning to feel hungry, whereas the first few months I didn't at all, ever. Um, but again, I now know and understand, because I've had a really, a strong work ethic, if you like, towards my nutrition, of what foods leave me feeling fuller for longer and what foods give me more energy than other ones. And so I'm able to adjust that without relying on going up a dose on Mounjaro. Perhaps now's a good time to talk about that. I don't know, but um,
Absolutely.
I'll start off at the beginning very briefly and say to people who are considering it or just starting out on things like Mounjaro, do not make the mistake I did, and I think it was a mistake. Is you have all these different dosage levels, and particularly this might be worse over here because it's all 95% of people who are on Mounjaro have to buy it privately, so that's where the pharmacists and pharmacy companies are making all their money. They encourage you almost to go up a dose each month. They have this plan in front of you on the website that says you'll start off on 2.5 milligrams, and all being well, if that works for you, then you'll go on to 5, and then you'll go on to 7.5 and 10, etc., every 4 weeks. So I just blindly followed that, and I wish to high heaven that I hadn't. I really recognised that that was a mistake, and it was a mistake because I started losing weight the very first week I started on Mounjaro. Not forgetting, please, for your viewers, that I was also changed my nutrition habits. It's not just Mounjaro, but I started losing weight immediately. So when 4 weeks was up, there was no reason for me to increase my dose. I should have waited until I found that my new habits that I was beginning to form, and if my weight loss had stopped completely, or I was getting hungry again, whilst eating healthily, then I would have known and recognized, okay, now's the time to up my dose. Whereas it's all this big new bright flash thing, you're completely wowed because people who are on these drugs have probably been overweight for many years, like me. And it's just such an amazing feeling. All you want to do is climb that dosage ladder because you're saying, what, more, I want to lose more and more weight. Not thinking about, or people like I didn't anyway, thinking about, well, actually, it's already working. So there's no reason to go out and increase my dosage level. So anyone watching this considering it or on a low dosage right now, please, please, please don't try not to fall in the trap that I did and just blindly go up and step up the doses. Don't do it until you either take advice that you need to or that you feel you really need to. And doing my favorite phrase again during this interview with you, broken record time though, because the emphasis needs to be really strong on this. The importance is not about the Mounjaro. The importance is that while you're on it, what you're choosing to consume to eat, because that will have the right or wrong effect. If I was just eating donuts still, and I don't know, a whole tub of Ben and Jerry's in one go, and lots of unhealthy foods when I started Mounjaro, I know I would have still lost weight because it has a big dramatic effect, obviously, that's
Mhm.
designed to on your hormones and how your body decides to process the calories you're consuming. But it would have meant that I would have been probably a lot slower at losing weight. So I go, oh, this is a bit rubbish on 2.5 milligrams. I need to go up to the next level, or I feel hungry. Well, you would do because the energy levels just spike, don't they? We all know that, I think, on the whole. You eat sugary foods, you get this big energy spike and you feel like you're on top of the world and you're buzzing, you've got lots of energy. And then you're on the climb down the other side. And then you're like, oh, I'm really hungry and I'm really tired. So now you need to go and eat more. But that's not the case if you eat healthily and you eat the right foods. So the two must go hand in hand, 100%, 110%. Take Mounjaro, eat healthily. If you don't eat healthily and don't make the effort, a good, strong effort to do that, then in the long run, and I always appreciate you can't see the future. That's too far a distance. You're going to see what's
Mhm.
in front of you. But to people like you and me who've been doing these things and have learned the hard way or the easy way, listen to them. That's the best thing you can do for yourself is change your dietary intake as well at the same time. And I'm quite sure most people do. I'm sure they do. But as I say, when you're focused on these things and you're a YouTuber and you watch other YouTubers talk about this, it starts to feel quite overwhelming that you start hearing and seeing the same message over and over again. And that is a lot of people who are saying it's not working for me, or I need to increase my dosage already, are the same people who probably aren't consuming a particularly healthy diet. I've
So
stopped
what
talking now.
do do you think that this is a medication that you'll be on for a lifetime, or are you gonna just reach a certain
It's a
level and stop?
That's a really good question, a really, really good question, and I can't be 100% of the answer because, again, time rolls
Right.
on. You don't know until you get somewhere. Um, Initially, I thought to myself, because I knew how hard it was, I found it to make a concerted effort to lose weight, or a significant amount of weight, I should say. I thought, oh crikey, yeah, I'll be on this forever. But if I can afford it, then so be it, because it's extending my life, it's making me happier and healthier. So why wouldn't you? It's no different than people who enjoy going out and buying a bottle of wine at the weekend to celebrate the end of a working week. That's what you do. That's what makes you happy. Well, having Mounjaro and losing weight and making me healthy is making me happy. So why would I stop doing it? But now, because like I said, I'm doing this qualification in nutrition, all the things I already really knew but I just wasn't doing about eating healthily, and the things that I have subsequently learned and felt about myself and come to realize over this journey of the last 7 months, means that I'm now quite confident that I won't need to take it forever, because I know the sorts of things I can do to affect my energy levels, my mood levels, and what to do when I do start feeling the decline in the dosage effectiveness that I have. I know what to do. And I think, if you don't mind me going on about this a little bit more,
Go ahead.
um, this was something really important I felt to me as well. And I did talk about this in one of my YouTube videos recently. There's another YouTuber, there's plenty of them out there, as we know, who talks about Mounjaro. He's a very successful YouTuber, gets thousands and thousands of views, and that's great. And I was reading with interest some of the comments, though. I was more interested in what people were saying in the comments, because I already understood what he was saying, because I'm on Mounjaro too. But there was one particular individual who said, "It's not working for me. Me and my wife both take Mounjaro. It's just not working for me. I'm hungry. I'm more hungry than ever before." This particular person said, and it's quite a common story I've discovered. And so people in the comments were asking, "Oh, okay, what are you eating?" And then so he reeled off what he was eating, and a lot of what he was eating was probably quite healthy. There's a lot of stuff in there that was just supplements, like protein supplements. He was getting a lot of his protein from, for want of a better set of words, fake food. Protein drink. It wasn't protein from
Mhm.
eating chicken or steak. It was from um, peas and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying they're good or bad, but I am going to say that definitely through experience, that if you're just going to rely on protein shakes and things, you are bound to feel hungrier quicker than you would if you eat chicken, steak, or a vegetarian version that's going to give you lots of protein. Because again, as we've already discovered and discussed, one of the deliberate things that Mounjaro does is slows down your digestive system. Plus, whether you're on Mounjaro or not, if I consume a chicken breast today, it's going to take X number of hours to be processed through my body. Let's say it's 4 hours or 5 hours it takes for my body to fully digest and take the nutrients and the vitamins out of that chicken breast. And then whatever it doesn't need, you poop or wee out later on in the day. If you drink a milky or whatever, or a watery protein shake, it's not going to be in your body for anywhere near that length of time, because your body and your digestive juices and things like that aren't having to break down that lump of meat or that lump of vegetarian equivalent. There's nothing there to digest, it's just liquid, so that will go through your body so much quicker. And I apologize to you and everyone else, you can cut this out if you like to, because again, I know I'm waffling on, but again, it's about being passionate about these things, I think. um, so the reason I mentioned that again was this guy said, "This is what I'm eating." All right, okay, you could probably eat a bit more natural protein rather than protein shakes and things like that. But then he went on to say, and I'm being healthy, and I go down the gym, and I go running, and I'm doing this, that, and the other. And so I then pipe up and go into the comments section and say, "Oh, okay, how long have you been doing this exercise routine for?" And he came back and said, "Well, I've only just started." now I'm taking Mounjaro. I want to get fit and healthy, so I've just started going down the gym and doing this running and doing this swimming, things like that. And I'm like, and this is probably what I actually do in my YouTube video. I slap my head like this, and I'm like, I don't want to take the mickey out of this guy, but it's from the outside, because again, this is so easy for us, isn't it? When somebody's outside looking in, you have a completely different perspective to when you're in your own little glass house. And it was obvious to me and a lot of other people that what he was doing was actually detrimental, because for the first time in his life, he's morbidly obese, like I was or am. And so he's taken some steps towards it. And he's now eating less because he's on Mounjaro. And the quality of food that he's consuming isn't necessarily the right kind. And he might not be taking enough calories in. So that, and then combine it with going to the gym, doing the running, doing the swimming, his poor body, he was already in a calorie deficit, and then he went to do exercise, so he dropped his calorie deficit even bigger. So I'm going to swear now, so cut it out if you need to. It's no
No.
bloody wonder the guy was suffering and thought Mounjaro wasn't working for him, because his poor body didn't know what was happening. It's like, oh my God, not only am I losing calories because you're not putting them in my body in the first place, you're now wanting me to go and do exercise and perform for you at a level that requires more calories. And so his calorie deficit was all the way down here instead of just being, here somewhere, if you imagine, just below the waterline. And this is something else I wanted to emphasize to people really was this YouTuber who's very successful and does genuinely have a lot of very useful information to give out to people. He turned around and said, Mounjaro is obviously not working for him at that dose. What he needs to do is up his dose of Mounjaro. And I felt really frustrated by that. I didn't go back and reply again, but I thought that was really the wrong answer to give. And again, he's not a doctor. That's just it was clear to me, but it was only clear to me, in fairness, because I'm already on that journey and I'm several months in and I've learned things and understood things. It was blatantly obvious to me that what he needed to do was just not go and do that exercise straight away. He needed to let his body adjust to this very powerful drug he's taking, that he's automatically reduced his calorie intake, but he also didn't know what his calorie deficit should be. Because you don't, unless you're a health expert, you go to your doctor, or go to a nutritionist. How do you know what your deficit should be to be safe's not the right word necessarily, although it could come into effect. A productive a productive number of calories to be in deficit by. Is it 50? Is it 500? Or is it 1,000? How do you know? And I didn't know. All I knew was, in this country, and quite similar to the US, I think most of the Western world all kind of align themselves roughly the same when it comes to nutritional advice and things like that. And over here in the UK, it says somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 calories a day is what the average man in this country should be consuming a day if he's leading a moderately healthy lifestyle. So I decided, right, okay, let's go with 2,000 calories then. So then I thought, right, I need a deficit from 2,000 calories so that I can ensure I lose weight. So I consumed 500 less a day. I was consuming 1,500 calories a day, and I'm still roughly around that figure now. And lo and behold, I've started losing weight. And yes, it was quite rapid, but that's partly because of Mounjaro, but also partly because I started walking and I'm not eating junk food anymore. So that they're the really key things that I'm keen for your audience and anyone else who watches these things or talks to people like us about to remember, is that it's not a magic wand. It's a crutch to support you whilst you change to healthier habits. And do not do too much too soon. That is so important. You've probably been obese and morbidly obese for years, like I have. That's how we get to obese. You don't turn up one day thin as a matchstick and then tomorrow you're morbidly obese. It takes a long time to get to that position. So why try and lose all that weight overnight is what I would say to people. Take it easy, be calm about it, slowly introduce exercise, and see how you get on. Because I just know you'll see the positive impact those changes are having from very early on. But you've got to try and resist doing too much too soon, like that person we were talking to in the comments in that video was. I've had other ones in the past. People comment on my own videos, and there one lady said, "I'm on the milk diet." I was like, "What the bloody hell's a milk diet?" And then I was on a water diet who only had water for a whole weekend. And I said to him, "So how long
It's
have you been on
insane.
Mounjaro?" He said, "I started this weekend." I'm like, you know, just take the drug. If you do nothing else, just take Mounjaro and see how you feel for the first 3, 4 weeks or even a month. Even if you don't do anything, if you know, don't change anything dietary wise, nutrition wise, just take the drug and see how you feel. Don't go out and do some fandangoed new diet craze that people have been talking about at the same time. Because how will you know when you feel X or Y, whether you feel brilliant or you feel awful, how do you know whether that's the Mounjaro or the water diet or the milk diet and whatever? You wouldn't know, would you? It's just too much happening at once. So just take it easy. That's my message. I'm so sorry. I can't stop talking. I'm going to try and stop
No,
talking now.
you're doing fine. So obviously, we all know how to lose weight because we probably have done it many times.
Yeah,
It's the maintenance where people kind of mess it up.
100%.
What are your thoughts when you finally get to a goal or a weight that you're happy with
Mhm.
on how to maintain it, especially if you're not going to use the medication?
Yeah. So I think, again, it comes back to we know as a modern day society through medicine and science, we know that we will have a better chance at longevity and healthy longevity in our lives if we do exercise. What guise that comes under is always going to be up for debate to a degree, but we know that just eating healthily is obviously going to go a long way to that. But we need to do more than just eat healthily. So, as I've said to you already, I've introduced walking, deliberate walking at a certain pace, has had a huge impact on me. But I can't just rely on 20 minutes walking a day and healthy diet to help me and ensure that I lead a fit and healthy life. Because I'm not still not fit, like in the general consensus of what fit is. I've still got lots of body fat to lose. So my plan is, and what I envisage is that I'll be in a place probably by next year, where I now understand enough just through experience. Never mind doing like a college course on it. What nutrition does for me, the positive effects it has on me, but the physical effects it has on me in terms of hunger or lack of hunger too. So I know that if I continue to focus on eating the right foods in the right quantities and get on my exercise bike a few times a week and get and build up a sweat and things like that and raise my heart rate, I know that I'm then doing all the right things that millions more people do who have never needed and probably never will need to use Mounjaro or GLP-1 drugs because they never got themselves in whatever situation people like myself have. And total respect as well. I completely understand that there's lots of people out there who are overweight because of other medical conditions, that preempt. Some people might not be in a position to do physical exercise, from an injury, an illness, or a an impairment. And so it would be much harder for them in the first place. So if you are healthy enough to do exercise and it's just about being lazy and not making the effort or being stressed and depressed and therefore you don't feel like going out and doing something positive like that, that's what we need
Mm.
to try and step out of. And that's my goal long term, is to remember those things and turn everything I'm doing now into healthy habits. And as I said earlier to you, now when I go in the supermarket and I go down the grocery aisles, I don't even need to think about it. That is now a habit for me. I know I'm reaching without without needing a list in front of me. I want tomatoes, I want cucumber, I want fruit, I want vegetables, I want lean meat. I don't need or want Ben and Jerry's ice cream. I don't need the candy bar because I don't feel depressed, because I feel quite happy because I'm feeling healthy and I'm getting better sleep. So there's another reason why I'm feeling that I'm more energetic. And so all the knock-on effects of what I'm doing now mean that long term, when it comes to hopefully coming off of Mounjaro, it won't feel like I'm getting on a slide and going back downhill again. I'll just be level, if that makes sense. Level-headed,
So,
level attitude.
so what does a typical day of food look like for you?
So I probably I'm probably quite boring because, again, like we're creatures of habits, and I get into the habit of eating pretty much the same foods every week. But until I get bored of it, I don't see a reason to change it if it's working as well. So on a typical day now, I have a very boring bowl of cereal for breakfast. And that's not necessarily the healthiest thing to have when if you're going to start going down the run of ultra processed foods and things like that. It's certainly not a particularly bad one. So I eat what's called, I think you have a similar name over there, all bran. So I
Mhm,
know that it's not just about hunger and things like that, but one of the things that goes towards staving off hunger is fiber. And
mhm,
fiber is really, really important to us as well as to our bodies. Now, I know for a fact that in the US and in this country, the recommended amount from scientists who know more than I do would say 30 grams a day of fiber is the minimum that we really should be eating. And next to nobody in this country is eating enough fiber. And I certainly wasn't. So by eating a bowl of all bran, this bran cereal in the mornings, I'm already getting 30% of my target for the day out of that. It's just over 10 grams of fiber just in that one bowl of cereal. I also eat that because there's calcium in it, and I know I don't eat enough calcium. So if I'm putting milk on my cereal, then there's a good reason to do that as well. So I always do that, and I tend to have in mid morning a little piece of cheese because I'm very concerned about my calcium levels because I've been eating less because I'm on Mounjaro and plus because I'm eating more healthily anyway. So that would be a typical breakfast for me. And then lunch or dinner, I would flip it around. Sometimes my dinner, what you would typically have in the evening, I have at lunchtime and reverse that because I work, remembering I'm a shift worker as well. So sometimes my work pattern is starting at 10 o'clock at night through to 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'll flip the two around, but I can count on one hand, maybe two. I can count on one hand how many days since February that I have not had a salad in a day. So 99% of this time, I've had a salad at least once per day. But it's not just salad. I have a protein on it. So it will be
mhm.
chicken, steak, prawns, some kind of fish, but there'll always be a protein on there as well. So it's a nice freshly made salad that I've made myself. I add lots of fermented foods on it. I add lots of beans, fresh beans, things again, because again, more fiber. Fiber's filling, protein's filling. Protein's probably one of the most important nutrients we take on board. So that keeps me nice and satiated and I don't feel hungry between meals. And then the second meal, again, it's either in the evening or at lunchtime, depending on my day and my shift pattern and things like that. I'll eat something probably lighter, like a piece of fish and maybe some rice. So I've got some carbohydrates. Or I'll quite often have a tuna sandwich, a toasted tuna sandwich on sourdough bread, not very processed bread. Because again, I'm getting fiber, I'm getting lots of protein again because my body needs it. Um, I tend not to worry about my carbohydrate count. I've not once in 7 months have I focused on how many grams of carbohydrates I've consumed in a day. Rightly or wrongly, again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying this is good advice at all. I'm just telling you how I've played it. All I've done is focus on my overall calorie content and made sure that I'm eating at least 30 grams of fiber a day. And I landed on a figure to maintain my muscle mass. I felt I needed 150 grams, which is quite high, 150 grams of protein a day. So I aim for 150 grams of protein, I aim for 30 grams of fiber a day, and I aim not to eat more than 1,500 calories a day. And so far, I've steadily lost weight. I've lost over 100 pounds in 7 months, and I don't really ever feel hungry. Although, as I mentioned to you earlier, I get a slight dip towards the end of the week when it gets closer to needing my next injection, but I can counteract that by eating an extra piece of fruit. If I put a banana in or drink some more water, that hunger quickly dissipates. And what I did also learn very quickly, I should say, when you're talking about an average day, is um, a lot of people already know this as well. We should all drink more water really than we do,
Mhm.
and that does have a big effect. And also, I should say, is I don't just drink the water to fill a hole in my stomach to remove the hunger. Quite often, and scientists will tell you this because you can find this out very easily for yourself. Is quite often when people think they're hungry, including me, they're not really hungry. Their body's signals to their brain isn't really trying to tell them they're hungry. It's trying to tell them you need to drink more water. It's not trying to tell you to drink more water to make you feel not hungry. It's telling you to drink more water because we need more water. So it just goes round in that circle again. As I said earlier about everything goes round in circles. Is we need more water because water helps us sleep. It helps our brain function. It flushes out poisons. It just does all these wonderful things for our bodies. So by drinking more water, you're having the double whammy. You are taking away hunger, but it probably wasn't hunger in the first place. So that's very
So,
important too.
what is your opinion on dose splitting? I know it's like the latest
Yeah,
craze. I know in the
sure.
UK they've come up with calculators,
Yeah,
so you know how many clicks is a half dose and so
yeah,
forth. What
yeah.
is your opinion on that?
I probably know. I can probably guess who you've watched and seen do that on YouTube as well, because
Fat
he's
old
very
climber.
successful. Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. Um, I don't have a problem with it. I've chosen not to do it at all. I'm probably maybe even on the boring side, but I made it goes back to what I was saying repeatedly and probably very boringly for your audience, talking about doing too much too soon, about how a lot of people take this drug and then they go down the gym and then they go swimming and then they cut their calories down. They're doing too much too soon. I decided that this is definitely a very powerful drug because it has an effect on your hormones, which are obviously key to our body operating. It's also very expensive. I wasn't an expert, and I'm still not an expert in how drugs work, so I can only go by what pharmacists and what my doctor would advise me to do. So I decided from the word go, if this is what the recommendation is to take this injection once per week, that's what I'm going to do. And then as I watched more and more YouTube videos about it and read more online about talking about split dosing, and again, as I said, I respect people. We're all adults. We can do what we like. I still thought to myself, no, it's working for me as it is. So I'm going to
Hmm.
continue doing what I'm doing. So if you take the financial impact away of saving yourself my money, perhaps by split dosing, or at least if you're extending it by doing the old golden dose thing, which sounds like people aren't going to be able to do for much longer anyway. I've been successful. I've lost £100 in 6 months. So why would I want to change it? You could argue, well, Dominic, if you split dose, you might have had an even better impact. You might have lost £120. But if we're serious, and if I'm serious, if you divide £100 by the 200 days timescale it happened in, that's half a pound a day essentially when you work it out as an average. I shouldn't be losing any more weight than that. I'm
Hmm.
already losing an excessive amount of weight in a very short period of time. I don't want to increase that really because you don't know what the side effects will be. So that was my conscious decision, was not to split dose. Um, I also felt as well, to be fair to, again, as I said, I respect people's wishes and decisions. I think it came about not because of the financial side initially, because that's really golden dose. I heard a lot of people talk about having splitting their dose because they didn't like the side effects that they were having, and they felt and read that, well, if I have
Hmm.
less, take less twice a week instead of once a week, it reduces the impact of side effects. But I think that's not really scientific enough, in my personal opinion and mind. Because if you remember right at the start, and again, which I bang on about on my own YouTube channel, if you don't change your nutrition really positively, if you weren't already on a positive nutrition sort of intake and diet, then your side effects will be worse than they are if you were on a proper healthy diet and a considered diet. And I felt that some people I spoke to, and people I know, outside of the YouTube world, who were feeling these side effects more keenly than I um, was because of their diet. Their intake of food hadn't changed or hadn't changed dramatically enough. And they were the ones then split dosing. And I thought, well, I don't need to do that because my body's only taking in things that naturally we know we should be eating. I've cut out all the crap. I've cut out additional sugars and fats and things like that. I'm eating what we know as a society we should be eating to lead a healthy diet and be good for our bodies. And you can't do it unless you're a scientist or an epidemiologist who do all these tests. But they do these kind of tests. They're out there. What they need to do is publish them and say, 50% of these people, we made them split dose but carry on eating donuts, or they might have reduced how many donuts they eat, should I say, and reduced the number of beers they drink in a week. Because I know there's YouTubers out there as well who still drink alcohol. And again, respect, you do what you like. But for me, even if it's boring and very black and white, I've decided, even though I already wasn't drinking, that there was no way I was going to enjoy a beer or a glass of wine because they were calories that do my body no good at all. There's no real use.
Hmm.
Might be a little bit. Remembering I used to work in the drinks industry, so I know everything there is for the arguments of encouraging people to drink safely, I should say. Yeah, those are calories. They're just wasted calories. Didn't want those to be part of my daily intake or part of my count. You've got the rest of your life to worry about going back to drinking again. If you're morbidly obese and you're unsafely obese, that you may have severe illnesses or just pop your clogs overnight by heart attack because you're morbidly obese. And if you can't spend a year or half a year cutting out alcohol and some other things, then I would say to you, and this will make me unpopular, I know, then I would challenge you that perhaps your mindset isn't fully on board with why you're taking Mounjaro.
Absolutely.
And that's a personal opinion. And hopefully they'll respect my opinion like I respect them for doing it, you know? Just an
Absolutely.
opinion at the day.
So do you have any last statements, anything you want to say?
I never told you how I got morbidly obese in the first place.
Go for it.
So, and I know because I'm just an average person. And I regard myself just an average Joe, just an average middle-aged man now. But I think I touched upon it earlier. I started falling back on food as a crutch to make myself feel better when I was very tired or when I was depressed. And I got more depressed because I was more tired. And I got more depressed because I got more tired and I got more unhealthy because I didn't do any exercise because I was too tired. And I didn't want to do any exercise because I didn't have the energy to do it because I was eating rubbish. You see where I'm going with this? It's just one of those
Hmm.
evil circles again. And I said to you right at the very beginning, I can go all the way back to the year 2001. I know exactly when it started. And I was running a pub for a living for a beer company. It wasn't my own pub. So the money wasn't, my hard work wasn't rewarding my bank account the harder I worked. I was just getting paid a salary. But I was ending up doing sort of 17, 18 hours a day. And I was having to work 7 days a week because I didn't have the staff or there were issues and whatever like that. And working that many hours and having very little sleep and being very stressed with the job raised my cortisol levels, which made me more stressed and I'm more unhealthy, which affects your hormones. And then on top of all of that, when I needed to eat and tried to eat, it was probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning where I was having my main meal because I was so busy throughout the day I didn't have time to eat. So I'm now eating at completely the wrong time of day. So I'm piling all those calories in, and then I'm going and lying down and trying to get some sleep before getting up very early and doing it all over again. So it's an evil circle. And I can pinpoint it back to then. I'm absolutely confident that's when it really started for me back in 2001. So with all that heavy stress, we also had a major event that happened and impacted lots of people directly and indirectly, which was 9/11 and the terrorist attacks.
Hmm.
And I can remember now, what is it? Was that 24 years ago? I can remember even to this day um, the extra volume of stress and fright and everything else that it did to so many people that had on me watching that live. I was watching it live on television because you traditionally over here when you run a pub you live above the pub, so there's no getting away from my business. So I was getting very stressed about the business and what was going on downstairs and being called backwards and forwards, and then this thing happened. I saw that I'm tired, I'm unfit, my cortisol levels up there, and I saw this absolutely horrific thing happen on television, and it threw me over the edge. And I think my poor wife says she thought I was probably having or had a nervous breakdown. I don't know. I didn't know what a nervous breakdown was back then, but I probably had one. So I packed up my job. And it's the first time in my life, and only time in my life, where because I'm a fairly down to earth, boring, fairly sensible person, but I just quit. I quit my job. I resigned from my job, and I didn't have another job to go to. I can remember ringing my parents saying, "I might need some help, some support from you. I can't. This is bad for my health. I can't do it anymore." So I quit just before Christmas. So I can identify fully where that started. And then I kept falling back on the food because, there's quite a major event in your life, quitting a job. You've had a really hard time doing that job,
Mhm.
very stressful. 9/11 happened, all these nasty things going on in the world. And it just sent me on a slope like that. And then you think you've got over it as well. But if you haven't dealt with it and got rid of and understood why you had that stress and why you felt the way you did, then it's just bubbling away underneath the surface. And then when I was working in the beer industry, I worked for one of the most successful beer companies, or beer brands at least, in the country at the time. So it was very rewarding, and you got very well paid for it, and you're working amongst a lot of other like-minded, young and trendy people. But the pressure is very much there to deliver as well. And if you're 100% healthy and of sound mind and health, that's not a very particularly difficult thing to do. But if you were like me and have come from a background of having very poor sleep, very high cortisol levels, being very stressed, I've lost a lot of sleep again doing that job. And I'd be up till very late at night, sort of 2 o'clock in the morning, doing a presentation that I needed to hand in the following morning at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning. So my sleep dived, and I started going back in that same pattern I was doing back in 2001. And then I really did have I had a definite nervous breakdown. I was considering suicide, the whole lot. I can remember it all happening at work. And I wouldn't be able to talk about this a few years ago, but luckily, I think society has moved on at least enough that makes it feel more comfortable for someone like me to be able to talk about it now. But I'm happy to talk about it if it helps one person recognize some of the symptoms. I can't help you directly, but if you're feeling like I've described now, exhausted, and you start getting anxiety and feel that you can't understand why you can't cope with something that you found easy before. I became very forgetful as well. I discovered as well, and that became more of a fright as well. It was very frightening to think. I was in a meeting last week, and I was told to go away and do this piece of work. I turned around to the follow-up meeting the following week, and I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And it was the sleep, the lack of sleep, that was affecting me too. So that's basically how I went from fit and healthy to morbidly obese over 20 odd years. It sneaks up on you. But unless you're fit in mind, I can understand why so many people are overweight from that side. And again, as I said earlier, there's other reasons why people become morbidly obese. There's some very unfair reasons for people as well: injuries, hormones, drugs that they need to take for other reasons create it. It's so complicated, the body, isn't it? Um, and I think I would just finish off by remember saying that I was on a national radio station a few weeks ago being interviewed and talking about Mounjaro. And I followed on from a gentleman who said what you hear millions of other people say because they don't understand. And they say, people shouldn't be buying drugs. People don't need drugs to lose weight. All they need to do is eat less and exercise more, as though that's the answer. I'll be very careful and say I respect the opinion because they don't know any different, because they haven't been in my boots or they haven't been in someone else's boots with hormonal problems. I know it's not just about laziness and eating the wrong foods. I know for me, it was because I was suffering from depression and a lack of sleep and exhaustion. And those all things all lead into one. So great for the guy who was on the radio before me, who'd probably never suffered from all those things. Or if he did, he managed to find another way of dealing with it that I didn't. And I was unfortunate enough not to, and had a nervous breakdown. So those are my messages. Those are my key messages. Is try and recognize it, get help if you can, and definitely number one on the list is the better your nutrition, the better foods and more healthy foods you're eating, the more positive effect it's going to have on you, the most quickly, the most speedily as well, for sure.
Well, Dominic, I want to thank you. It was very gracious of you to do this interview. Hopefully,
Welcome.
people will, you know, take our advice, listen,
Mhm.
make an informed decision. I want to remind everybody that Dominic's information is going to be linked down below in the
Mhm.
description. So please hit that like and subscribe button, then go over to Dominic's channel and do the same. And hopefully, I know I've learned a lot from this. Hopefully, everybody has too. So thank you again, Dominic.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. I'm really sorry I waffled on for so long because,
So
when you get
you're fine.
passionate about something, I just can't stop.
I'm the same way. So most of my interviews are about an hour, hour and 15 anyhow.
Okay.
So that's
I have no idea.
you're
Oh,
right on
okay.
par.
Okay. Good
Uh,
stuff. That's good to know.
so with that, I'm gonna wrap this up.